Throughout history, only a handful of nations have never been truly broken by conquest. Afghanistan is one of them. Alexander the Great, the Persian Empire, the Mongols, the British Crown, and the Soviet superpower all tried, and all failed. Historians call it the graveyard of empires for a reason. The answer most strategists give is geography: vast mountain ranges, labyrinthine valleys, unseen passes, and cave systems capable of swallowing entire armies whole. But some of the soldiers tasked with navigating that terrain came back with a different explanation. During foot patrols, drone sweeps, overwatch missions, and quiet conversations with village elders, a handful of men encountered something that no military training had prepared them for. This is the smoke pit, and these are the true accounts of servicemen who believe Afghanistan's mountains hide something far older than the Taliban. Real quick, you want to know my theory on why giants retreat to the most remote places on Earth? Because in the mountains of Afghanistan, nobody is trying to sell you an extended car warranty. Meanwhile, I'm over here letting every unknown call go to voicemail and then Googling the number before I call back. Last week I got 3 texts about an undelivered package from an email address that looked like it was typed by a caffeinated raccoon. And don't get me started on the "Hey, how are you?" messages from numbers I've never seen in my life. Here's the truth: every time a company gets breached, and it keeps happening, your name, number, and address end up in someone else's hands. That's exactly why I started using Aura, today's sponsor. Aura works around the clock, scrubbing your information from data broker sites and alerting you the moment your data shows up somewhere it shouldn't. After the recent wave of major data breaches, I stopped rolling the dice on my personal information. Head to Aura.com and try it free for 2 weeks, link in the description. Nothing to lose. Now let's get back to the story. Part 1, The Kandahar Encounter. Scene 1, Narration. Following the September 11th attacks, U.S. forces launched Operation Enduring Freedom in October 2001. The objective: dismantle the Taliban regime sheltering al-Qaeda operatives. Within weeks, American air superiority forced Taliban fighters out of the cities. They retreated into what they knew best, the mountains. The Kandahar region became identified as a critical Taliban stronghold. Special Operations Forces, Army Rangers, Navy SEALs, and other classified units were tasked with hunting insurgents through some of the most unforgiving terrain on the planet. Their missions involved cave searches, ridgeline patrols, and intelligence-driven sweeps through valleys where a wrong turn could mean an IED, an ambush, or a 100-foot drop. Somewhere in early 2002, one of those patrols went silent. Scene 2, Dialogue, Radio Operations Center. Comms Officer Reyes, over headset: Wolfpack 3, Sitrep, over. Static. Reyes, Wolfpack 3, this is Bravo TOC, come in. Pause, they've been dark for 6 hours, sir. Captain Harden, Grim, pull the QRF. Get Sergeant Calloway's team spun up. We're not leaving them out there. Scene 3, Narration. A second Special Operations element, led by Staff Sergeant Marcus Calloway, was immediately inserted into the mountains outside Kandahar. Their orders were simple: locate the missing patrol, dead or alive. Scene 4, Dialogue, Mountain Patrol, Calloway's team. Calloway, whispering, stack up. Something's wrong with this trail. Specialist Dutch Henriksen, scanning, Sarge, look at the ground. That's Kit. That's our Kit. PFC Torres, voice cracking, is that body armor? Calloway, spread out. Weapons hot. Whatever hit them might still be here. The team moves cautiously uphill. The trail opens onto a wide rocky plateau. Before them, the dark mouths of several caves. Between them and the caves, piles of bones. Henriksen, barely audible, are those human? Calloway, don't touch anything. Tactical spread. Eyes on those openings. Then, a sound. Low at first. A vibration more than a noise. Then it becomes a roar, deep and ancient, echoing off every rock face around them. Something steps out of the largest cave. Scene 5, Narration. By every account, what emerged was not a man, at least not by any proportion they had ever seen. Roughly 13 feet tall, draped in animal hides that barely covered a frame of impossible size, the figure's face was framed by a wild mane of deep red hair. Its teeth, 2 full rows of them, were bared in a snarl. In one hand it held a wooden spear, the shaft as thick as a fence post. Before Calloway's team could raise their weapons, it charged. Scene 6, Dialogue, Firefight. Torres, Contact. Contact front. Gunfire. Sustained, panicked. 30 seconds of chaos. Then silence. The enormous shape lies on the ground. Calloway, panting, pressing comms, Bravo TOC, this is Calloway. We have one Kia. I say again, one of ours is down. We have, long pause, a hostile. Neutralized. And I need you to send me someone with a bigger vocabulary than I have, because I don't have the words for what I'm looking at right now. Over. Scene 7, Narration. The radio operator on the other end reportedly asked Calloway to repeat his transmission 3 times. The sitrep that finally made it up the chain of command was, by all accounts, the most unusual ever filed from that theater of war. The team remained on site until a CH-47 Chinook arrived with cargo pallets and rigging equipment. The creature, described as being no less than 13 feet tall, weighing an estimated 1,100 pounds, with 6 fingers on each hand and 2 full rows of teeth, was loaded onto a standard 463L aircraft loading pallet. Upon returning to base, every member of the team was debriefed individually. Each signed a non-disclosure agreement. The body was never seen again after they stepped off the helicopter. Part 2, The Pilot's Account. Narration. The first public trace of this story appeared not from a ground soldier, but from a CH-47 Chinook pilot who was tasked with transporting the body. He spoke anonymously on a late-night radio broadcast in December 2008, a program called Coast to Coast AM, in an episode titled Flashpoints and Giants. His account was notably restrained. He never embellished the story of the attack. He simply described what he personally observed. The thing was covered with tarpaulin and rigging by the time we loaded it, but you could see the hands and the feet. The fingers, pale, almost white, and there were 6 of them. The feet, wrapped in what looked like primitive hide boots, were close to 28, 30 inches long. Curled up in a fetal position just to fit the pallet. Stretched out, I'd put it at 12 feet minimum. Weight on loading was around 1,100 pounds after accounting for rigging. The smell. I felt sorry for my loadmaster riding back with it in the cabin. Like skunk, but heavier. Muskier. I was told it was being transferred to a base in Ohio. I never heard anything more than that. The only air base in Ohio of any national significance is Wright-Patterson, an installation with a long and well-documented history of involvement in classified aerospace research and unexplained phenomena investigations. Part 3, Thermal in the Ridgeline. Scene 1, Dialogue, Night Patrol, 2008 to 2009 deployment. SGT, Elias Voss, peering through optic, hey, LT, I've got a big heat signature at the top of that false summit. Looks like a cluster. Maybe 8, 10 guys huddled up. Lieutenant Park, Taliban warming post? Voss, that's what I thought. But watch, it just moved. The whole thing shifted as one unit. Park, 1 unit? What do you mean 1? Voss, it stood up, sir. It's one thing. And it's as tall as those trees. Pause. Park, Voss, those trees are 35 feet. Voss, quietly, I know what I said, sir. Scene 2, Narration. This account comes from a former infantry squad leader who served in northeastern Afghanistan's Kandahar province from 2008 to 2009. He wrote, "I was issued a new thermal optic, Recon 3, and ordered to test it and train other squad leaders on its use. I was scanning the valley and the ridgelines one night when I picked up a massive heat signature. I assumed it was insurgents clustered around a lamp, which happens. Then the signature elongated, as if what I thought were multiple people was actually one thing standing up. The trees in the area were roughly 3 to 3.5 meters tall. Whatever I was looking at matched them in height, maybe exceeded it. It covered ground fast, long, relaxed strides, but the distance it crossed in seconds was impossible. It was gone over the next ridgeline before I could radio anyone. I didn't tell my team. I didn't tell anyone for years. Then in 2010 I heard a coast-to-coast episode about the Kandahar incident. I went cold. Every detail I'd filed away came back at once." He added a detail that stuck with him: local Afghans in that district had a practice of dyeing their hair, and their goats' hair, bright orange. He never understood why. He wondered, years later, whether it was an offering. Part 4, The Reaper's Eye. Scene 1, Narration. Not all sightings come from men on the ground. A former Air Force MQ-9 Reaper operator, a drone pilot, submitted the following account. He was conducting a surveillance pass over a high-altitude settlement in the central mountain region when his infrared camera picked up something outside the expected parameters. "I was doing a standard MWR sweep, nighttime, over a small compound near a settlement I'd covered maybe a dozen times before. A few people around a fire, totally normal, some goats tethered nearby. Then I noticed the scale was wrong. The goats looked the size of house cats next to two of the figures. I have a reticle on my screen that gives me width reference. These people were as tall as my reticle was wide at that zoom level. We're talking 3, maybe 4 meters. They weren't doing anything aggressive. Just living. Tending the fire. One of them checked the goats. I watched for about 10 minutes before the flight path took me out of range. I always wondered if they were redheads. I couldn't tell, MWR doesn't give you color. But I think about that footage a lot." Part 5, The Analyst's Log. Narration. Between 2012 and 2018, Senior Airman Daniel Marsh worked as a full-motion video analyst, reviewing hours of drone footage to build pattern-of-life intelligence in preparation for ground operations. One target area was the Karengal Valley in Kunar province, a known Taliban transit corridor running to the Pakistani border. He wrote, "We were building pattern of life on a small cluster of compounds northeast of Karengal. A few men at a fire, standard. We watched for weapons. About 20 minutes in, 2 shapes I'd read as people bundled under a blanket separated and one of them stood. It made the others look like children. It walked to a mud brick structure and had to duck, significantly, to get through the door. IR only, so I can't give you hair color. But height? 8, 9 feet. At minimum. And the way it moved, fluid, unhurried, wasn't how a person moves when they know they're near a military position. It wasn't afraid of anything." Part 6, The Lieutenant from Uruzgan. Scene 1, Dialogue, Australian OP, pre-dawn. Lieutenant Callum Reeves, to himself, scanning through thermal, "Come on, there's nothing out there." He adjusts the optic. Freezes. "Reeves, what in the—" He checks his laser rangefinder. Checks it again. Reeves, under his breath, 1,800 meters. That puts you at, that's. He watches for 5 full minutes. The shape does not rush. It walks with complete ease through the dark valley below. Scene 2, Narration. This account was submitted by Lieutenant Callum Reeves of the Australian Army, deployed to Uruzgan province. He wrote, "I was on stag, what you Americans call guard, in the early hours, scanning the valley with thermal. I picked up a large bipedal figure below. No traditional Afghan clothing, no pakal, no shalwar kameez. Just a lean, dark silhouette. I confirmed range with the laser, 1,800 meters. I ran the numbers against the building walls in my field of view, which I had accurate measurements for. The figure cleared the roofline by a significant margin. My estimate, no less than 12 feet. Possibly more. It wasn't running. It wasn't hiding. It walked like it owned the valley. Asterisk, I told nobody. Not my team, not my CO. Some things you just hold on to and hope the silence means you're not crazy. Finding out other people saw the same thing is